Watch this video with our virtual reality glasses for smartphone. virtualvizor.com.
I want to be involved in VR. This is something that I care about. This is going somewhere. I'm gonna take a bet with my career on this very nascent, market. And so yeah, if you can tell us a little bit about what you do and then how you took what you did and started working in VR, that'd be great. So we can start on this side and then move down.
Okay. Hey, I'm Joergen Geerds. I'm CEO of Koncept VR. We are one of the oldest and largest cinematic VR production houses in New York City. And what got me really into VR was actually a technical need as a filmmaker and creator, where the tools back in 2011 were not really that awesome for creating cinematic VR. We had the Ladybug, not sure how many people know or remember that red camera out there, but it was very limited in terms of what you can do creatively with it. And so we set our minds behind it and actually built the first fully spherical video camera system that was autonomous, no big recording system attached to it. That led sort of to a little bit of a revolution within the space that we're all working in now, giving filmmakers and creatives really the ability to, like, you know what, we can take a camera into places that we couldn't take them before. And that basically led over the last couple of years then basically to the foundation of Koncept VR and really doing commercial productions, or like over 60 we've done so far.
My name is Camie Baker. I am the Director of Partnerships for Gannett USA Today, our studio, which is called Get Creative. I originally started my career working for Wired. I did a lot of business there from a brand technology storytelling perspective. I'm more on the media side than the advertising side. I was introduced to Nico Chalice, who is our Director of Applied Technology, and during the interview process was brought into our VR studio and shown what we're doing, and it was so captivating to be able to see the storytelling opportunity that VR has to offer that I just instantly was hooked.
Hi, my name is Kevin Shuster. I'm an executive producer at Team One. Team One's a division of Saatchi & Saatchi. We're located here in Los Angeles, actually down in Playa Vista. And Team One, we deal mostly with luxury brands, aspirational brands like Lexus, Ritz-Carlton, others like that. We have our own in-house VR lab, and that's what got me interested. But actually, I hate to admit it, but I'm going to show my age here. But back in '95, I actually wrote my master's thesis in virtual reality for medicine. So I was actually in medical illustration school, and at the time we were playing with it. We had something called the Cave, and we're messing with the hardware and the software, and it really wasn't there. And I remember writing in my thesis that it's not going to be ready for another 15 to 20 years. So it's 20 years later, and now look at us, right? So at the time it was kind of a fad, and it wasn't there, and the technology wasn't there. But I think it's obviously going to take hold at this point. So that's what I'm passionate about. That's what I'm doing a lot at the agency at this moment.
Hey, my name is Engel. I am Director of Content Operations at Deluxe VR. And Deluxe, as you might know, is a post-production house. We do visual effects for feature films, collaborating with feature films. And in 2012, because I'm a gamer, I watched the E3 keynotes coverage from the press, and there was a guy called Joergen showing off a weird thing in a back office. And the press picked it up, and it was the first prototype for Palm Lucky, and I was one of the Kickstarter backers for Oculus in 2012 in fall. And since then, I've gone through all the different headsets, and I'm kind of, in our company, I'm the VR mind.
I'm David Birnbaum. I direct the design team at Immersion Corporation. Immersion is focused on haptics exclusively. We've been around since 1993. We're up in the Bay Area, and we kind of got our start in gaming. If you've ever played PlayStation or Xbox and you felt rumble in the controller, that's something that we developed and licensed out. We used to actually manufacture these giant exoskeletons for VR back in early 2000s, where it was a very complex mechanism where you could actually provide force feedback independently to each finger. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we've sold a few of those. And so we're happy that VR is finally kind of reaching this consumer level of market and is combining with our other business, which is gaming. We also have an automotive business, a medical business. We're in virtual devices, and we started to build products to enable advertisers to utilize the sense of touch on mobile devices. So not so much VR, but now that we're kind of learning about haptic ads and ads for the sense of touch on mobile devices, and we're also working on controllers for VR, we're kind of thinking, how could you kind of bring these principles from mobile into VR in a way that is not invasive, but very engaging the way haptics can be.
Hi, my name is Jess Engel. I'm the director of original content at Within, which is formerly Vrse. And we are a platform for distribution, specifically focused on storytelling experiences in VR. Before getting into the VR space, I was working in the film industry, and I worked on films like Blue Valentine, Place Beyond the Pines, and Captain Fantastic that just came out, so more in the independent film world. So I've always been interested in storytelling, and I think for me, what excites me about this medium is that it's just a new way to experience stories and experience the world, and we really don't totally know yet what a narrative is in the space, but that's kind of the fun of it, to be experimenting and playing with it and merging what we know from the film world with gaming and with experiential, and kind of coming up with a new way to relate to what's going on around us.
Great, thanks guys. Yeah, as you guys can tell, really interesting backgrounds that are going to be on this panel. A lot of amazing insight that they have in the VR space, so definitely pay attention to what they have to say. To give you some background on how I got interested in VR, I was actually studying neuroscience at Vassar College, and it was while studying neuroscience, I was working with the professor on an academic review of the last 10, 20 years of VR research that's been going on. And it was while working on this paper that it really sort of hit me that, the incredible potential for VR, beyond just a medium, as the next real sort of valuable interface with technology, especially in this sense that it's a post-symbolic interface, where we're interacting with technology in a somatic way with our bodies, with movement, whereas typically the way we've interacted with technology in the past is, originally like through the command line or the graphic user interface or clicking symbols on the screen. This is one of the first technologies where we're interacting with it in a more sort of natural human way, which is really exciting to me. So that's what originally got me into VR, and then since then I've founded a company in this space called EEVO. Happy to talk more about that later. But yeah, so to start getting into some of the questions here, what do you guys think, in terms of the history, what are moments in sort of the digital space, or maybe even before that, that you kind of relate the current stage of VR to? Sort of looking back, if any, maybe it's a totally new space and there aren't that many comparisons, but would love to get some of your opinions on that.
It reminds me a lot of when the web came about, like 94, 95. I was hired straight out of school to create a web department at a traditional ad agency, and at the time, nobody knew what it was. Again, it was sort of the fad thing, and we had clients like Johnson & Johnson. We had others that they actually were interested in doing it, but they never had the budgets. Just like now, there's not the budgets. They have to take money out of broadcast or other areas for this. Even the people in the ad business, it was all new. Nobody knew how to write for it or design for it, and it'd be like, well, they try and make it look like print, right? And they try and make it, try and fit it into existing stuff, and it just wasn't working. And same thing, measurement and all that. And at the time, I was like one guy, doing all of it. But now you have so many different disciplines now doing web design and interactive and coding. And it's so I see that same thing happening with VR, where there are going to be UI UX people specifically for VR, AR and any other R you want to put in there. You know, and same thing, there'll be specialists when it comes to, there are right now with Unity developers and directors and all that. So, you know, that's where I see a similarity with the past technology. And I think even statistics is another big thing that we were struggling with, and that same thing with VR and AR. You know, how do we measure?
Maybe one more thing I would throw in there is games, because I mean clearly you could come up with any kind of stuff in tech history, but clearly has to be something that is driven in a rapid pace like transistors and networking. And games is somewhat in there, where you're suddenly interacting with something and you're not only consuming something. And I think that's going to be the same thing in VR. VR, because it's so close to you and it's such a different kind of thing, you can definitely just consume something, but at some point you're going to get bored and you want to interact, you want to act in that environment, and that's something that's very akin to what we know from games.
Great. Anything else? Or?
Yeah, I would say directly related to VR, I would say Pamalaki started the fire a little bit in 2011, so put the first Tinder out there. But the first pieces of wood on the fire were basically when Samsung came out with the Gear VR and then the Google Cardboard. I think this is when really it started to get into more markets. We got our VR content in front of way more eyeballs than Oculus would have ever been able to, just with the tethered system, and moving on to the mobile was basically the spark of genius in here.
Great. So, a question here to help out the audience. Why should we care about VR now? Why not just wait a couple years, kind of see what happens, let the pieces fall where they may? What did you guys as individuals, what are you grateful for having learned by getting involved with VR early, and why is now the time to start learning about this? Or
I can talk about the why we Deluxe VR do VR. The reason why is because it's a very, very exciting space. We have people who worked a long time in visual effects and feature films, and you've done a couple of these and you worked at different places and you know everything, and suddenly this new thing comes along and you have to relearn a bunch of things, and that gets even the most seasoned professionals in our field very, very excited. Not knowing everything and not having all the pipelines laid out, but being part of this new endeavor and defining pipelines, workflows, and also interacting with the client. We're a service-based business, so we're interacting with our clients and coming up with VR experiences. And that interaction is also very interesting because it's a very iterative process. It's not something that you have an idea in the beginning and you just execute it. While you're executing it, you have to iterate, you have to refine, you're learning new things, and I think that is certainly a very risky thing to do, but that's where the fun is.
I would add to, I think for us from a journalism perspective, the opportunity to showcase stories and let the readership understand so much more of the story you're trying to tell, and giving them that intimate experience that VR only allows creates a much deeper relationship that we have with our audience and our readership, and just creates more of a connection for them. So once you start doing that, you want to continue to tell these stories and offer them not only to our advertisers, but continue from an editorial perspective.
Yeah, to add to that, when it comes to Team One, we have clients that look to us to be cutting edge. They come to us and say, "What can we do now?" Right? So we touch on AI at work. We touch on AR, VR. We're always playing with different things because we're storytellers. We're natural storytellers, and we want to create emotional impact in some way in everything we do, whether it's a banner ad, a print ad, a broadcast video, a TV spot, or VR. So, our clients go to us and say, what can we do? How can we extend our brand? How can we generate sales? What can we do? And so we try and offer that to our clients at Team One.
I have maybe a little bit of a different answer, but I think it's really critical that we think about what we mean when we say virtual reality, right? We want to give people an immersive experience. So Where I'm coming from, I've been trying to kind of bring the sense of touch to the point of it's a craft, it's a creative process that enables, you know, creative professionals to create touch experiences. And when something comes along called virtual reality, I immediately think, well, it's not real if you can't touch it. So there's got to be something really important that we can contribute here. And talking about things like if the goal is to engage people, certainly the sense of touch is going to engage people in a very direct and intense way. And so as we think about like how to make immersive worlds that are really truly real and engaging, sense of touch is going to be a part of that for sure. The problem, I guess, is that there's so many possibilities. I get asked all the time by people in this industry, they say, I know haptics is really important. Tell me what exactly I need to do. And there's still so many directions that we can go that there's not a really clear answer to that yet, but there are several fascinating possibilities kind of emerging.
Yeah. So to add a little bit on the haptics part, and I totally agree on the more senses we can use when we are in a VR experiments, the more real it feels. One of the last shows we did at NMB, we actually showcased a rocket launch, and we used a sub-pack with it. So the viewer had basically a big fat subwoofer on the back, and we tweaked the subwoofer track specifically for that pack, and it only rumbled basically when the rocket really has those low frequencies going on. And as you said, it really adds another layer of immersion to it. We had also directional sound in it, so we had basically 3 senses covered in that experience, and like people were just blown away.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I love that David's on this panel is because I think he's speaking to this haptics angle, which is not something that's really been thought a lot about, especially in the commercial space. And coming again from my neuroscience perspective, it's absolutely true that the more senses you involve in an experience, the more your brain believes what is actually happening is real. So it allows for that, you know, deeper activation, that true illusion. That's what happening is real. And so that's why spatial audio is. It's not just visual. If anything, audio and haptics are almost more important than visual. I mean, if you think about the video chat with someone, you care more if the video is choppy or if the audio is coming through very clearly. So there's all these different senses that are now very important and have to be thought about as one sort of cohesive unit. Yeah.
I would like to actually disagree with it.
Sure, yeah.
And my point is that the visual cortex is really our strongest input that we use on the brain. And not having studied neuroscience, but coming a little bit from the experience here is, once we are in a VR headset, what the eye sees is really the brain starts believing it, because we take the frame of reference away. And I had people coming out of VR experiences, even without proper sound, without haptics, and they were like totally there. They already believed it.
Yeah,
we're tricking the brain. Is what we're doing and believing it.
Yeah, and the visual part is you do have to have that high quality. I'm just saying, it's when you have those additional features that you just get the deeper emotional
Actually, unpacking it a bit further, I actually think the reason VR works well, the visual part of it is really an artifact of the fact that it's accounting for the movement of your body, right? So the reason it's convincing when you only have visuals is because it's changing when you move your head. So that means that your body is somehow being accounted for and incorporated into the experience. And haptics kind of does that same thing. The interesting thing, though, is that even in our language, the way we talk about the senses, right, we can say, you know, your visual senses can be easily fooled. It could be an illusion. It could be a mirage. Don't believe what you've heard, right? But then if you have a feeling that's somehow more, that's like a deeper, meaningful kind of experience, and we see it all the time in language, the way people talk about senses. The sense of touch is almost like the gateway to epistemology. Like, you can tell if something's real if you can touch it. Pinch me, I'm dreaming, right? And so, like, everything else can be an illusion, and you can accept that illusion. But what I've seen is that when you add the haptics, like at your rocket launch, you start to almost forget that you're in an experience at all. And I think that's really like the key. And it's not just haptics, it's actually just involving the body in kind of this intuitive way.
There's one other thing that I can't remember where I read it, but it's been a few articles where they're actually showing that like VR is stored in a part of the brain more like a memory, like a real true experience, like you actually did this thing. Like there's been times where, you know, I've watched a few things and a couple days later I'm driving down the road and I'm like sitting there thinking, I was like, wait, did that really happen? And I'm like, well, and I'm like losing my mind while I'm driving and saying, you know, wait, no, that didn't happen, that was this. But I'm arguing in my head over there. And it's a funny thing because I don't know who's seen the walk, you know, the Create VR did this really interesting thing where you're you know, based on the movie, The Walk, where the French tightrope guy walking across the Twin Towers. And I don't know if anyone's experienced this, but I put it on, and I'm walking along, and it's just like a cord taped to the floor. And they had a fan blowing, so they did a nice job with haptics. And I'm there, and I hate heights, right? And so I'm trying to walk there, and I'm shaking and doing this, and I hear everybody laughing at me. Like I know this, and the visuals, and they used all the models from the movies, in the Sony movie, and it's so believable. But yet I can hear people, I know it, but my brain is arguing with me while it's happening. So it's a lot to be said for haptics. It really is. You know, we're playing with a lot of cool stuff at work as well, but I think just all of it sells it.
Yeah.
Well, the haptics here that also are the input from your feet. To stand on that imaginary rope is really a very important input in this context.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, and to bring this, you know, haptics tangent back, the question, you know, like why VR? I mean, I think this is one of the reasons VR is different than a lot of the things that have come before. I mean, it's the power of physical installation with the accessibility and distribution potential of digital. So, yeah, there's many reasons to get into VR, and it's incredible. It's also fun, as people have said. It's really exciting. There's just so much that's unknown about it. There's not many industries like it in that sense. So moving on. So VR actually covers a pretty wide range of experiences, which we've started to talk to. There's ones that are just visual. There's ones that involve haptics. How do you kind of view this range of VR experiences? Do you think there's different sort of purposes for it, like mobile versus tethered? What type of VR experience gets you most excited? Yeah.
I think it's important to say that all of those devices out there have a purpose, because I'm coming more from the higher end side. I really like room scale VR, walking around and interacting with things directly. However, I also know that this is like something that is very exclusive. That is something only a few people can experience, and only a few people have, especially in large areas like LA or New York, have the real estate to do that. So there is obviously everything from Google Cardboard up until the HTC Vive and Oculus. And I think for makers it's important to know your audience and know what your audience likes and how many people you want to reach. And that's going to determine very quickly what kind of platforms you want to use. What we're suggesting at Deluxe is always a multi-platform strategy. Never only rely on an HTC Vive or as a cardboard. How about you make it actually a really nice interactive experience for a trade show or for your POS, where you're in the store, you can experience your amazing creation. And then you make a 360 video derivative from that, and you put it on Gear VR and maybe even Daydream. I don't think Google Cardboard is going to be around for a long time. It's going to be Daydream because that's going to be a standardized platform. And so think about that, and obviously it's always easier to port from high-end to low-end. It's very hurtful to go from first doing a 360 video and then want to turn that into an interactive experience. That's not going to work.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Within our platform, our app is available on all the platforms. And so for me, my job is sort of interesting because we can make experiences for the Vive and the Oculus and just what you said, room scale, game engine based stuff is definitely, that's like kind of what I think hacks your brain the most, and is really exciting to play in. But from a scalability perspective, mobile just gives you so many more options right now because we all carry this around with us all the time. Mm-hmm. So the barrier for entry is a lot lower, and also just knowing, depending on what the creative is as well, not, a lot of like 360 video doesn't necessarily need to be watched on an Oculus or a Vive, right? So I think that, and I'm excited just to see how we've been seeing up to this point a lot of 360 video for mobile, but I think that is going to continue to evolve as well, which will be really exciting, with Daydream and levels of interactivity. And so, I think it's all just kind of beginning right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you guys both mentioned a really important thing, which is this idea of a multi-platform approach, right? Where VR isn't just one thing. There's actually many different levels of that VR experience. But there are ways in which, when you create one experience, you can then create versions of that work across those platforms.
Right.
And then when creating those versions, definitely, the goals are different, right? Your goals for mobile and your target for mobile is going to be different than your goals for something on an HTC Vive and the target audience for that. So that's definitely an important thing that I wanted to get across early. So now let's get in some of the more sort of nitty-gritty stuff about advertising and monetization, right? We're all very excited about VR. It's amazing. It's really cool. But at the end of the day, we have to find ways to monetize it if we want to build a real market around it. So my first question for the panelists is, what do you think the prevailing business models for monetizing VR content will be? Do you think we'll see new models arise around it that we haven't seen before? And what role do you think analytics will play in all this?
I'll go ahead, sir. That's pretty much what I do all the time for my job, is a lot of times we're spending time educating the advertising marketplace on what VR is. A lot of people still don't know, so it's getting them to table stakes position and then understanding how they can translate their original storytelling in the VR space and how it's different than 2D and all the different formats out there. We've worked with a couple different clients on creating branded content VR video for them. We recently launched a campaign with Camie, which allows you to experience Western Australia through VR perspective. We've done some things with Nest and Honda, but looking to scale that opportunity from a business perspective of creating original content for brands, but also making sure we're not creating advertisements for them too, is what is the value proposition for our readers, and making sure that we're communicating that back to the client. But outside of that, that's a lot of time and work put together to be able to sell that in, and the analytics piece is really important as well. So we've also been thinking a lot about how do you create a turnkey advertising opportunity in the VR space. We're launching a show on Thursday in partnership with YouTube and Daydream called Virtually There, and we had to come up with a advertisement for this new platform, because you can't create, every week we have a new show coming out. You can't easily create segments and branded content around that. So we came up with a new advertising unit for VR called the Commercial. And the commercial is pretty much what it sounds like, is advertising on 4 different walls. So it's a cube that surrounds you, and it can be video, animated graphics, still images that is within the VR content. So it's almost like an ad break. You could have it before or between segments that host the advertising creative around it. So we're looking to take this to the IAB and make it a standard unit, but it's something that we'll be launching on Thursday within our new segment that's coming out. So it's really exciting, I think, to think about what are those opportunities and how we can make them immersive and not, I hate to say it, but lame. It's not a 2D video experience, but how do you take innovation in advertising and try to match that to VR? And so that's what we think about a lot too.
Yeah, it's sort of a struggle right now. Everybody's still trying to figure that out. We have a lot of media companies approaching us. I think Jess is right when she was saying about mobile sort of leading some of this, because everybody has the phone, and you can have an app on your phone. You have the cardboard or whatever attached to it. It makes more sense than desktop, where maybe you can have a 360 video. But I think we're getting approached, hey, let's look at pre-roll, let's look at pre-roll video or interstitials, and using that sort of present day model of, measuring and tracking. I think what would be interesting now is really less about ads, or making the ads more like writing a real rich narrative or some real story. So are there a little more short films with branded content in there? I think that'd be really cool, because I'm also a screenwriter. I write and I do a little directing, but it's a lot of fun just to create that story, and maybe it's little segments, right? Little things that, like a serial type thing that you can put and you can experience it. weekly basis or however. And then I think when it comes to measurement, when it comes to VR, I think there's a little bit of, measuring how you measure video and how long you watched it and where you left it, and then when it comes to web, it's, what you clicked on and what you didn't, right? So, but I think with VR, it's like, well, what did you interact with in that space? Like, if more than just passive, but if you're able to move an object, how many people moved that object or got in the car or something like that, right? Measuring those kinds of things that we really haven't seen before. So it's sort of like a mix of what we're seeing in video and interactive. And the other big thing is gaming now with PlayStation VR, in-game apps, on mobile, I think those could be VR. And on the PlayStation, VR, you already have your headset on. Why not serve up an ad or some kind of in-game purchase and he comes up? I think there's a lot that can be done, and then social as well.
Yeah.
The social rooms, Facebook and Oculus rooms and Alt VR, all those companies is like, what if you had like an event in a social room and then you're charging people to go and attend that event? Or screening or release of a new car, or there's a lot of things I think that's social that we haven't cracked yet. That's going to be huge.
Right.
So I think that's something to watch.
I think you bring up.
I just want to point out that basically your answer is everything, which is actually totally valid, right? But I mean, we're basically recreating a fully immersive, interactive experience. So you can imagine outdoor advertising.
Sure.
Being put in VR, and a lot of the KPIs are going to be similar to, in reality, outdoor advertising, but maybe different now because it could be somehow interactive. So all of a sudden, you just run into this wall of saying everything's possible, and and that's pretty cool. I mean, I think the way I would approach that is collect all the data you can, go back to kind of this big data model of saying like, I don't even know what it's going to be good for. I just want to make sure I know everything happening in this world or with my ad. And eventually I can go back and mine it and figure out like how to monetize particular behaviors, because I think at this point the scale is actually so small and it's so limited that we don't even like making those decisions could be detrimental to like longer term opportunities.
Right.
I think a lot of it too is attention, where people spending their time within the experience and figuring out like how you translate that to a bigger KPI that you're looking at. Because to your point, a lot of them are very small, and is there anything you can glean from it? But like, where is attention? How do we create better VR based on how people are consuming it?
And are you going to have better recall from it? Because if it is like a memory, are you going to remember that brand more than you would if you just saw it as a video? Or the interacting part, would you remember it more because you actually interacted rather than passively watch it on a TV set?
Yeah, I totally agree that we need to find something in the advertising space that is unique to VR. It has to evolve with VR as every other thing we import, right? So we can't just import movies into VR and they work like movies, or import games into VR and work like games. What we need is advertising that goes to the next step, because problem right now is one of the most downloaded apps on the internet is actually AdBlocker. So we need to find a way to get people engaged in advertising again, and they don't automatically hate it. And the challenge is that VR has it easy on your head and you're not going to rip it off. So there is chances that people are going to take that and say, you're going to see this 30-second interstitial now, and then, oh my God, I'm like in here. And this could be, when I put my consumer head on, this could be a very bad experience. And we don't want to give people a bad experience. So the more creative you can make it, the more engaging you can make it, the better it is, I think.
Yeah, we're doing a series with GE. And it's called The Possible, and it's a 5-part series that David Gell, who directed Joergen and Sushi, directed 2 of the episodes, but it's all about profiling the way that profiling different people who are pushing technical boundaries. So it kind of is in line with GE's mission, and so with that, it's using like a brand sponsorship type of model, but being able to create original content. And so for us, that's something that we're interested in and want to continue to do, because again, just what you said, we don't want to just like throw an advertisement into the space, but if you're a brand and you want to get into the space, being able to tell stories, different creators that sort of are in line with what your mission is a way to kind of get in there as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's this big opportunity for advertise. It's a brand new opportunity to think about being really creative. And I think as Daniel mentioned, you're actually going to have to deliver advertisements that people want to watch, because trapping someone in a VR experience for a 30-second pre-roll that they don't want to watch is not going to lead to happy customers at all. I wanted to pause for a second and go back to something that Camie mentioned, which is like amazing that you guys have developed this ad unit basically for VR because you've just gotten involved in the space early. And I think this goes back to one of the themes in the earlier questions is why get involved now? It's because there's just so many things that you can learn by getting, the knowledge is honestly the valuable part. You know, you guys are going to have this ad unit that is potentially scalable to the whole industry. And the reason you have that is because you started experimenting early. Sure, you might have sunk some money into it, but like that's what's so exciting about VR is that knowledge you can then take, and that's value that you guys now have. And that's not value that you can purchase later, you know? So I mean, I think that's amazing. I think that you guys are like a perfect example. Like there are some publishers who don't even know the difference between like 360 video and the other. Like it's amazing the differences in knowledge that is out there. So I think that's great.
Yeah, we're super excited about it. I think that, to your point earlier, it'd be great, we create small segments of content and making sure that it's telling the story, but it's the opportunity when a client doesn't have the content, like people that see the opportunity that is VR, how do you scale it for a lot of advertisers out there, but still make it interesting and not force a bad experience either, so it's riding that line between the two of them. So experimenting, but we're excited about it and been pretty bullish on rolling it out overall.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And in terms of, I mean, have you guys been looking deeply at some of the KPIs, or like for the analytics for this? Like, are you looking at heat maps? Like, what's the driving? Yeah, what are you guys looking out for?
It's probably the most frustrating part because the analytics are not where they should be and not where people expect them to be. So we have our own app where we distribute a lot of our content, so we're able to do tracking on that. We don't have the opportunity to heat map yet. I think that's the next thing, and then all the interactivity that it provides. We're doing a lot with Daydream, so we're expecting a lot more analytics coming from that. But right now it's pretty baseline metrics, and it's something that we're constantly working, I think, with partners to try to help educate and understand is the opportunity that is VR can't be evaluated the same as other media plans and other media opportunities out there.
Yeah, I was going to say, the other thing I think that's going to change that is eye tracking. Once they start having that built in, I think it's going to be another good way in which to provide some sort of reporting analytics on where somebody's looking at in the ad or video or whatever it is. And that probably, we're already seeing that happen, so maybe a year, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the attention tracking is, I think that is the golden line for us, is understanding that, and soon.
Hell not.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's definitely, I think, a direction that it's going. We've touched upon this a little bit, but sort of starting to move into our next area that we want to cover. How do you guys see the current relationship between advertisement and content so far? How do you see that evolving? I mean, I know a lot of the stuff right now is primarily, a lot of the money is just coming from brands, so a lot of it is taking the form of branded content. Is that something you see lasting a while? Is that just a current sort of need right now? Any thoughts you guys have on that would be welcome.
I would say at the moment we see a lot of business coming from brands where we create actually experiences from them. The rocket launch that I mentioned earlier is actually an advertising piece, so if you're in the market to have payload going up into orbit, it's definitely for you. Everybody else just enjoys it for the rocket porn. So it's basically has a large draw for the technical aspects of it to be like really immersed in that situation. So we try to basically, in our pieces, to have like duality to it. First, on one part, we promote basically one piece of brand that we ever want to say, but also give basic entertainment value to it. And that way the user can decide to like, yes, we actually enjoy it. Another piece that we did, for example, was for Open Blue. It's a fish farm down in Panama. And the message of the advertising is basically, yes, you can buy fish. It's delicious fish, but the main takeaway is it's actually sustainable font. And because now fishing industrial fishing has problems because the ocean's getting emptier and emptier, now all of a sudden you have an ecological message with it, where we can say, you know what, there's additional education to it, why we do need actually fish farming in this context. So we try to basically give the duality to the pieces and still have a good experience.
A good chunk of the stuff we're doing are more location-based, like room scale type of VR for our clients. As I mentioned, we deal with more luxury brands like Lexus and the Ritz-Carlton, so they tend to have a lot more events, right? And they'll have like in dealership things that we could do. So a lot of what we're doing is really focusing on like the Vive or Oculus, but when we're doing that, we are being conscious of how it might look on a Samsung Gear VR or something like that. But really our focus has been that, because it is about the experience. It's about, what is it like to go in and maybe see a new car from Lexus, or, change the colors of the car, or, walk around the car. Maybe you don't have a chance to do that. And same thing with some of the resorts at the Ritz-Carlton. It's more about the actual experience rather than an ad, right? So I don't know if we really even are thinking so much, let's make an ad with VR. I think let's create some kind of cool experience. And I think that's the big difference with VR. It's about experience, not really so much advertising. And that's why you have so many people coming in from all these different fields, whether it's directors and writers and coming in and just really creating really good, hopefully creating good, rich narratives that it's compelling. And that, I think, becomes memorable.
I was going to say, you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're trying to do.
Right.
And that's what, through partnerships with different brands, we're, trying to leverage their interest in the space to bring new voices and experiment with new ways of telling stories.
One thing that might be interesting in the time we are right now in the whole, life cycle of VR is that I think we also should keep in mind that right now we're still coasting on a novelty factor. And that's also going to change in months and probably months. Because before the HTC Vive and the Oculus was available, we drove to creative agencies and we showed stuff to our customers and they were amazed by it. Obviously, you've never seen something like that before. It's like a magic room. You go in there and you're teleported into something like Tilt Brush. You're creating something you can share it with people. Amazing. Now that Oculus and Vive are publicly available, suddenly this is not an exclusive club anymore. And the more we're doing those things, the more VR becomes normal to people. I think the more creative we have to be, and the more interesting, the more content is going to matter. Right now, it matters if you have the hardware, you have a PC and a Vive, amazing, you can amaze people. That's going to change in a year. In a year, everybody's going to have a Vive and the PC and the room scale thing, and maybe Oculus Touch, maybe still very rare, but
But unless the content's there, nobody's going to buy the hardware. I mean, that's the key. So there's a lot of chicken and egg going on right now between costs and hardware. And if you really look at the Vive and Oculus, I mean, there's like 500,000, 600,000 units, but half of those are developer kits, right? So really, I think really what's going to be a game changer is, and I guess there's a pun in there, is PlayStation. With that and what's going to look like over the holidays, and gaming's going to drive a lot of that. But that's what, $399, right? It's easy to set up. It's got some issues if anybody's played with it, but if you look at it, it's that nice, comfortable in between the Vive and the headset. So or Google Cardboard and all that. So I think that's going to be a big driver right there.
Yeah.
And it has a market to sell to as well.
Yeah,
And
there's a base already there,
Yeah.
and so So.
And to get to this question of content, I'd like to ask this question, and to be honest here, how much time do you guys spend watching stuff in VR that's not your own content that you're working on, like per week, let's say?
Do you want I would say I used to watch a lot more than I do now.
Okay.
I look like if I hear somebody did something cool, I'll go check it out. But there's just everybody's getting their GoPros and playing with it, and they're posting something on YouTube, and there's really not a lot of compelling content out there. There's some some neat stuff that I see coming out that people are experimenting with. We talk about branching narratives, and are you creating something that's like an escape the room or choose your own adventure kind of content? I think it's more interesting, and where you get somebody to spend more time in there. But those are the only things I kind of will try and seek out now.
So like,
or a competitor of my client.
20, 30 minutes a week, maybe an hour. Less.
Maybe about 30 minutes.
Okay. Any
but
other numbers?
I do other things.
Yeah, no.
I probably watch probably 5 hours a week or something like that.
That's not related to your work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I have to say also that probably people who are working in VR and have been working in VR a long time, which means in our industry 2 years or 3 years, it would probably be the worst people to demo something to or to show something to, because what I'm doing is I'm looking through your headset. Yeah, performance is great. Okay, yeah, you know what you're doing. Pretty awesome. Okay, thank you.
Looking for
probably the worst focus group ever. So if you are at the meetup or whatever, don't always ask people, have you been in VR before, and that kind of gives you a good grade of what their comments are. I'm always checking out new things, because I'm actually hopeful that there is going to be more relevant content out there. And you're absolutely right. When the Vive launched and you looked at Steam, at the website from Steam, and I finally loaded up my Steam wallet with $100 from my corporate credit card and want to go shopping, and I probably bought 5 things out of 200, because there's just there's a deluge. I think what happened was a lot of people had a lot of platform holders had angst that there was not going to be content, so they opened up the flood doors to everybody who owns a Unity game engine and can buy things from a Unity shop, throwing around some Christmas trees or whatever. It's going to be fun. What we have right now is like a filtering problem. People out there, is really hard to kind of go through all that content and figure out what's actually worth playing, what's good content. So, and we're definitely also missing the press. Like, we need reviews. We need to talk about language, how we talk about those things. Is it like 4 out of 5 stars or 360 stars? I don't know.
Even discovery of the new content.
That's discovery is a big problem right now. But I think the platform holders are right now overvamping their old systems. They kind of acknowledge that, and now they're trying to put the things more like an Amazon recommendation model, where the things you consumed before, this you might also be interested in this, and then they put it in front of you, which might help.
Yeah.
So I actually also see around in the 5-hour range per week. I'm the admin of the 360 Video Professionals on Facebook, so we have about 6,000 members, so I do see a lot of stuff. But I do actually like events. Like this one, like VR on the Lot last week, or for example the Kaleidoscope Film Festival that was touring around. René Pirel did a great job curating pieces that are interesting in VR, and then taking it upon himself to really take that show with 60 seats of Gear VR headsets and take it around the world and make evenings and events around this. And this really opens it up to the world, because as you said, in VR there's unfortunately a lot of garbage out there. And
So we need kind of like a book club for VR.
Yes, you need to, because kittens and flowers will not move the industry. It won't happen. It is the high-end storytelling, immersive pieces that will move the industry. So we need to create those, we need to see them, and on events like this, we need to talk about them. And really face-to-face with the creator, why do you think this was good, or I think you should change this maybe, and then have a real dialogue about it.
I was just going to say, I don't spend that much time in VR either, maybe about 30 minutes, but something that I've noticed is that VR is kind of, as a medium, it's amenable to, you're immersed, so you want to have long-term, rich experiences, but everything seems really kind of short form, almost half-assed sometimes, like you said, with the Unity engine, or it's a GoPro thing. How long can you watch somebody snowboarding down a mountain or whatever, right? So I just think that and it's actually a challenge because I was reading that the economics are just really challenging around, a AAA game title costs whatever $100 million. Doing the same thing in VR costs so much more, and the development tools just aren't there, and so you wind up, you just don't have the longevity of the experience that you need to be able to say, oh, I go home and spend 4 hours a night in VR. There's actually not a really like a pipeline that enables that yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true, and I think for us, we're trying to really think about like serializing content a bit more, so it's not just one-off experiences, but rather things that you want to come back to and kind of create more of a habit of. And also getting, it is really interesting how the people that work in the industry, maybe we watch 30 minutes to 5 hours per week, but it's like the people who don't work in the industry, how do we get them interested in what is going on in the space?
Yeah.
Well, we're kind of in a bubble here in LA.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like really, LA is the hub of VR right now. I mean, you have some in San Francisco, some in New York. New York's trying to get there. No, but I mean, it's really, people know it here. The entertainment business and all that, and you can go and sometimes there's little kiosks and things in the theaters, but nationwide, nobody really knows this. I've talked to friends, and they're like, "Oh, I see you wearing those stupid things on Facebook," and then I'm like, "Got to explain what it is." But that's another big thing is really, and that's why I think location-based is going to lead a lot of this initially because of events and getting around, like Six Flags and what they're doing. They're, exposing people to VR, and then they go, "Hey, that's cool as shit. I want to do that," right? So I think that, and then the content, because right now there is just a lot of demos and things that like developers do. And we were talking about web earlier, and that's all websites were done by developers, and it looked crappy until you finally had designers and real creative people get involved and good writing get involved, and then it changed everything. And I think that's what's happening here.
This might also be, by the way, maybe an American or a Western culture kind of thing, because we kind of grew out of the arcade kind of thing. And when you're looking at China, for example, and we're talking with partners from China, they're really looking forward to have our products in arcades there. And then we tell them, well, gee, great, but like we don't have arcades here anymore. So they kind of like, they haven't yet came out of the arcades, which is great because that gives them all the locations there where people mingle together, meet in the evening, and play Street Fighter and have a VR experience.
Yeah, they definitely do it there with like cafes and things like that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, it just makes you think about like when movies first came out, that's why theaters were invented, right? Because people didn't have that technology in their homes, so instead of buying a projector or whatnot, they would pay to go see one movie, like a nickel or something, right? And so instead of investing in expensive hardware, like what is the thing that people can go to so they can actually see content, but without potentially investing in the hardware quite yet.
Yeah.
I would also venture that the Eastern world is so problematic with the couch potato problem that we see in the West, and maybe they haven't even gotten to the couch potato phase yet, so they're far more eager to go out into an arcade and go out with the friends and experience an VR experience together.
Well, and from a community standpoint, it's bringing people together. So one thing we've been talking about is how do you create more serial or chapter viewing, so you're telling a longer story in it, where you have more of a water cooler conversation opportunity for your friends to be able to go watch it. Did you see this segment, and how can you bring that to life? And so that's what we're trying to do with our new show that we're launching on Thursday. Is it's weekly programming with 3 different segments. Is how can you create something that people want to talk about, but it's also consistent, so you're getting people to tune in and to engage with it. But it also is not long. It's 7 to 8 minutes because of, there's not long form viewing. The headsets, people don't want to wear them for that long. So it's creating something that's amenable and open to the population, but also takes into account, the ability now that we have for viewing the content.
Yeah. Another challenge I think with content viewing in general is that VR is inherently isolating, and I think a lot of people enjoy viewing content in groups and in a social setting, and there's just like having other people watch what you're seeing on a TV is not the same as sitting next to somebody watching Netflix, for example, or even playing video games. I mean, you know, you're playing a video game, other people in the room are kind of enjoying that you're playing that video game, and it's a more social experience.
Yeah.
I think that's where there's a lot of people working on like solutions to that, but I think we're far from nailing it.
Yeah.
Actually, last week we saw the HTC booth, and where they actually set up green screen. Right. So you do your VR game on a green screen, get filmed with a secondary camera, and then you see the person in the virtual environment, and that is so entertainment for everybody else. It's so fun.
That's been a
huge
great
potential.
tool for that's been a great
That is by the way one reason why Sony and the PlayStation, they specifically said to developers, hey, you know, don't forget that there might be somebody else on the couch sitting, and we allow you to, second person with a game controller, play the game on the normal screen. Then there is a person with them wearing the headset, and they're in the same game world. I think people are very cognizant about the fact, and that also that Mark Zuckerberg announced more social aspects of VR at Oculus Connect 2 weeks ago was important, because when I talk to decision makers, it's always hard to kind of convince them that they're looking at people isolated with something on their head in the room, like doing something. It's very, very, very hard to make them understand that we're now in a connected world. This looks very singular, very unconnected. But I think when Facebook announced their social initiatives, that's why they bought Oculus in the first place, right? They didn't buy it because they want to make headsets. They want to buy it because there's going to be at Facebook a small little switch. It's going to be VR, and then you have everything you have in Facebook in VR as well. And then at some point, you're going to be very, very social. And right now, I think we're in this pre-Facebook, pre-social world, and we're going to come to a...
And we're going to move to closing remarks real quick, and then we are running pretty close, but people want to stay after and ask questions, and the panelists can stay a little bit longer. I'm sure that's fine. So to wrap up here, just like very quickly, we'll go down. Why do you guys care about VR, and what's unique about it to you? Where especially on this sort of content side, like what do you view as unique opportunities for storytelling in VR, and why do you as a person actually care about that? So we can start with Jess and then go to Sam.
All right. Questions. For me, I think why I care about it and why I'm excited about it is because it is so new, and getting in at this point, you really have this ability to shape it and to help guide what it can be. And that's a pretty amazing opportunity. Doesn't really come about a lot. And you know, I worked in the film industry. I do love movies a lot, but there's something about the kind of like the unknown and being able to explore. We already sort of have what that format is. So what is like this new format of telling stories, especially with an ability to put somebody there in it, you know, and with the ability for them to control and manipulate the environment, it's incredibly powerful. Those are the main things that, you know, to be able to kind of deeply connect with somebody and connect people in a way that hasn't been done before is a very exciting moment.
I would echo that. I think of VR, over the long term, beyond just, this industry and this inflection point that we're in. As humans, we spend a lot of our time and energy basically controlling our sensory inputs. Like, we spend a huge amount of time, I like this, I like the way it fits, I like the room I'm in, I change the temperature. Everything I do is like modulating my sensory inputs. VR to me, over the long term, means that becomes software, right? So now, like, you can do anything, and today we're doing things like we're porting concepts like storytelling or like reality, imitating reality, and bringing it into this kind of experiential virtual environment. But what's beyond that? Like, when you aren't trying to simulate something, what can you do when you really unleash like the creative possibilities of saying, I can modulate sensory input however I want? So to me, that's like, I don't even know what I mean by that, but that's like super exciting.
Yeah.
The two things I really like about VR is, first, I studied multimedia art in a very small university in Austria, and when we talked about multimedia like 15 years ago, it was like in a multimedia CD-ROM, with a menu and everything. It's amazing. And then when everybody was done, my colleagues went off to, the guy became a sound designer, web designer, database engineer, everybody left. VR, I think, brings all of this together, and that brings me to my second point, which is not only connecting customers, but connecting people. When we're creating VR experiences now, we're coming to a point where we don't know how to do certain things. So we need to reach out people who would never talk to. Industrial designer, how do you design things that they talk to you when you're looking at them and you want to reach out and grab them, and when you grab them in VR, they react exactly how you expected. They make the sound you expect, and you have the haptics engine exactly how you expected. Suddenly you're talking to architects, stage designers, people you would normally never talk to when you're in making your game or whatever. So I think it's a very interesting developer scene where we're in, and you have all those people coming from different disciplines, and all of those people can contribute to this new medium. And I think that's a very, very exciting thing.
Yeah, for me, I love the movies, and I think it's, to me it's like when I go to a movie, I get to escape. I go and live in another world, or I'm along for the ride there. For me, with VR, it's, we have an opportunity to create an experience, right? To create something for somebody, and allow them to be transported into somewhere else. Like for people who don't travel, maybe they wanted to go to China, or maybe they want to go to Mars, right? We have the opportunity to transport people and feel that for people, they don't have the money to do it, or they want to go share an experience with someone. And I think we're able to create that in a way that we've never been able to before with any kind of creative anything. So that sort of shared experience, you talk about connecting people and storytelling, I think we're all kind of saying the same type thing up here, that this is so new, and it's up to us to kind of create this and help people, experience these things that they would maybe never get a chance to do. That's what's exciting to me.
Yeah, so mine's similar. It's the transportation opportunity, is the ability to go somewhere and experience something that I haven't, or other people that we're creating content for haven't. I also love the fact that I can create my own experience within that content, so I can direct my attention wherever I want, which is something that isn't an opportunity in other media or any other storytelling formats that we have. And I think that powerful ownership that we can provide as a consumer of it is just really awesome. And it just creates so much more empathy and emotion around it that wasn't possible before.
I just like the fact that we're basically seeing the equivalent of the Cambrian explosion here for VR. This is a totally new world. It's going to develop in so many sub-branches of interesting stuff and creativity and human interaction. That's going to be mind-boggling. And I'm just going to try to continue on the branch of cinematic storytelling, because I like to take people on a ride. I like to tell the story to them and really capture their imagination and take them to places they don't exist elsewhere.
Great. And for me, to sum this up, I think what's really interesting about VR is that typically when it comes to content, you have this world that exists in the mind of the content creator, and they have to bring that world to life through representation, whether it's on a screen or a poem or a dance or a theater, whatever. It's very representational, and to me, VR is this opportunity to take one step closer to that world that exists within the creator's mind. It's just one step. You're abstracting away some of that representation, and that's in a sense why I think you can have these very emotional experiences, because you're giving the opportunity for someone to take that world they have in their mind and allow you to be inside of it, which I think is really interesting, and I think the potential for that is exciting. Thanks so much, guys. That's we're over, but in terms of anyone needs to leave, they can leave. If anyone who wants to stay and answer questions, ask a question. I I think that's okay. So, yeah.
I just had a quick question. I mean, you all mentioned that it's kind of a challenge weeding through the glut of content experiences out there, and that has been a challenge for other media like 3D, you know, where the well gets kind of poisoned by that kind of stuff. But you've got a room full of people here who are obviously very interested. Do you think that we could just go down the line real quickly and you could share one example of something that is worth our time to actually take a look at, that made you think twice about what the capabilities of this industry are, but with the caveat that it's got to be available on iOS, Android, or Gear. So no room experiences that we got to travel to Helsinki for, much as I would love to do that, but you know, something that we can actually see.
Room experience too, because I like to go if it's cool.
Yeah,
sure.
If you think it's cool.
Yeah, and if any of you guys have to leave, like, no, we are over, so feel free to
Yeah.
get up. But if you want, yeah, if you have time.
I'll say, okay, 2, maybe 3. One would be, maybe some bias as well, but Evolution of Vrse, which is on Within. That's one of the first pieces that Chris did.
Evolution what?
Vrse, V-R-S-E. It's on the Within app. It's a pretty seminal piece, I think, in the space, and just a beautiful piece of storytelling. And another one I would definitely say to check out, it's not on the Within app, it's the NBA Finals piece. I see it from Fox Sports. It's on Gear VR, and Missing Pieces just did it with Oculus. It's a great piece. It's a 25-minute long piece, but I think it's really great in terms of storytelling. And
what's it called?
It's called Follow My Lead. And then I would also say Felix and Paul on the Gear VR are also really great. They have several pieces, like their Nomad series is really beautiful.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Nomad.
Yeah.
If you're a producer today and you're producing digital content, you're using a content management system, you're doing text, you're doing video, you're doing audio. So what I wonder is, like, there's Gannett here, there's a Within, there's an agency. Are you guys all like developing VR content and using a proprietary production content management system, or is there any like platform for digital that kind of says, okay, this is how we handle and produce VR content? You know, just to wrap it up, you talked about the content being 7 minutes long because the audience attention span is that long. What about actually the amount of time it would take to edit something longer than 7 pieces in VR, 7 minutes in VR? So my big question is technology platform. Like, how hard is it to produce this content and develop the kind of structure to present it?
Yeah, so we can keep, for that question, we can keep going down the line if you have something to add on to that one, sure. Also, to answer your question, that's what my company does, in a sense. We're a full end-to-end platform for content management, and we also offer tools and technology to help people launch their own VR apps. So if you're CNN and you wanted to launch a CNN VR app, we have the content management system that's linked, that
What's
the
the name of this
infrastructure,
company?
EEVO.
EEVO?
So that we saw a need for that in the market. Some people are developing stuff, but for the most part, once you start thinking about spatial audio, stereoscopic video, and coding for VR, there's like so many deep technological problems that need to be solved that it's very hard to do all of it internally.
Right,
and
I come from the world of open source content management, so I'm just wondering, like, are there going to be like 6 different kinds of EVOs, or is there going to be more of an open platform to do it?
Yeah. So yeah, you guys can keep going down and add on to that question as well.
I think eventually there's going to be an open source platform probably. Right now it's so technically, VR depends so much on tech that you see people are creating their own walled gardens everywhere. And I think it's going to take a couple of them to fail until we see like a broader open source kind of approach emerging. And it's one thing on a high level, looking down at what we're doing right now, is also we need to acknowledge that we're hacking right now things together to make it work in VR. So neither a smartphone nor a Vive is the perfect VR device, or a game engine is the best VR authoring tool. We're using those tools because they're here, very much like the first cars looked like horse carriages, because all those tools and technology weren't invented yet. So what we need is tools that are actually specific for VR. And what we've seen on Facebook side is they're now looking at a headset that is in between a full room scale Vive Oculus setup and a Gear VR. And that device would be the first that's actually built for VR. And that's going to be interesting because it's not going to have a lot of problems we have right now with smartphones, which is temperature, battery life, they're passively cool, all those things, they're not really built for what we want to do. And it's a similar thing on the platform side as well. So I think we're going to see the democratization of file formats in the near future, because right now we're all working in our different sites.